Welcome back. Today we are going to discuss modifiers. If you haven't done modifiers earlier, if you don't know or you haven't heard this term in your school, that's absolutely okay. We will discuss that. If you know what modifiers are, because maybe you've seen SAT prior or you've taken the test and in the outcome, when you see the result sheet, it says modifiers somewhere, and you don't yet know what exactly does the term mean. This is the correct place to be. Let me explain what modifiers are. So as the term suggests itself, it modifies, right? Modify, changes. In case of sentences, what does the modifier do is it adds some description or it affects sentence in some way. Yes, it's very similar to what we have done in our school as adjectives and adverbs. So basically, what we are looking at in modifiers is adjective, adverbs, and phrases. These three things. Okay. Adjectives, so just to give you a recap, goes to any noun. For example, if I say she's a beautiful girl. So when I say she's a beautiful girl, she's a girl was the sentence. But what type, what character, what description am I adding to the girl? Beautiful. Or if I say she sings beautifully. So what kind of description am I adding to sing? I'm saying beautifully. Yeah. A very easy way to differentiate between adjective and adverb is that adverbs follow ly. Yeah, so just remember that as a trick. So adverbs go to anything but noun, which is it can go to adjective, it can go to another adverb, it can go to verb, but adjectives go only to noun. So if you have to refer to a noun with something, you add some description, that's called an adjective word. Okay, so two things. These two things can be a part of your modifier. So minor modifiers, this is tested mostly, but in your modifiers, what you would find is phrases. Now, phrase is an incomplete sentence. Yes, we already know that. So, what really happens in modifier is that you are given a phrase and then a complete sentence. Both of them are attached to each other in most questions, not in all the questions, but it's not placed correctly. Yeah, let's do it through some examples and it will be more clear to you then. Let's look at this. The first question, which says it's a misplaced modifier. That means the modifier is there, a sentence is affected by something, but that is not affecting it in the correct place. It is not written in the correct place. Now, you see this one. He treated chocolates to guests. He treated guests was the sentence. Yeah, he did something to the guest. He treated guests. And then I said, treated chocolates to the guest. Yes. Now you see, the word treated is written before chocolate. So what is over here? What is the sentence over here says is that he treated chocolates. Now chocolates are being treated, not the guests. Chocolates are, because the modifier is just before chocolate. Yeah, that's the problem. He treated the guests with chocolates. So who's being treated? The guest. So if you want to treat the guest, say he treated the guests with the chocolates. Yes. If you want to treat the chocolate, I don't know how do you treat the chocolate, but if you want to treat the chocolate, then let it be. But you don't want to do it on SAT. That's one example of misplaced modifier. Yes. Now, another form of modifier where something can be incorrect is in the second form, which is limited modifier. She only talks with James versus she talks only with James. Now, both sentences are grammatically correct. Now, this is where a lot of students find problem because both are grammatically correct. But there's a slight difference in the meaning. So as per the passage given to you, you'll have to find what meaning suits best. You can pause the video for a second and think about it. What exactly is the difference between she only talks with James versus she talks only with James? The word only is placed here and here, that's all. Okay, let's see what's the difference. So when you say only as a modifier goes to talks, that means what's being limited? The word talk. She only talks with James. Probably other verbs like. So she doesn't like James. She doesn't see James. She does not entertain James. All the other verbs, she doesn't do that. She only talks. Yes. Next one. She talks only with James. So now when I say only with James, that shows a special connection between them. Like, oh, she doesn't talk with others, but with James. So both sentences just with this word, they are totally opposite. She only talks with James is indicating that no, she's not interested in him. She's like, oh, I'll talk, it's okay. But she talks only with James. She's only interested in this one guy. So depending on how is your passage going, you will choose one of the option here. Okay. Now that's limiting modifier. Both are grammatically correct, but which one should be the correct answer? You would know based on your read to the passage. Now let's look at dangling modifier. While teaching the students, someone took her lunch. What? So, okay. Now it sounds absolutely correct, right? While teaching the students, someone took her lunch. But the problem, this is where the phrase comes in. While teaching the students, so someone took her lunch was a complete sentence. And what time or when did this happen? While teaching the students. So that's while teaching the student is the modifier. Now I'll tell you a rule to remember. In modifiers, the first thing you do is you identify the modifier. In this case, we identified that while teaching the student is the modifier. Then the next thing you do is you identify the subject. So the subject of the entire sentence, including modifier, okay? Not the subject of the only sentence and leave the phrase away, no. This modifier is going to what subject while teaching the student. So you ask yourself, okay, who's teaching the student? Yes. So if the sentence starts like creating history, so we should know who's creating history while teaching, who is teaching. Yeah. So I need to know the subject that goes to the modifier. Third, you place them next to each other. So if you see in this case, while teaching the students, who's teaching, the next word is someone. So that means someone is supposed to be the subject. So if someone is teaching the student, then who took the lunch away? We don't know. That is why it's a dangling modifier. So modifier doesn't know who to go to. No, it's just dangling here and there. It's like, okay, while teaching the students, I'm supposed to say who's teaching, but that who did not come at all. In this type of sentence, you have to correct it by adding the subject that is missing to the modifier. And when you add the subject, you'll have to, of course, add the verb because subject verb go together. So this one can be corrected by saying, while teaching the students, she saw that someone took her lunch. So she was teaching and she could see that someone took her lunch. Oh, of course, not my lunch. So over here, while teaching the students, she. Now, why did I add she and why not he or I or anything else? Because of this word her. It was, so clue was given, her was given. In the pronoun video, which you must have seen earlier, I've already mentioned that if you're using any object case pronoun like her, or possessive case of pronoun or any other pronoun, this pronoun will refer back to the subject case pronoun. And the subject case pronoun over here is she. So who's the subject? She. In order to use this her, she is required. Okay, easy? All right, let's go to the questions now. While sleeping, the doorbell rang. So now, the similar kind of question, the similar kind of sentence like we just did. When you say while sleeping, the doorbell rang, you're not telling who's sleeping. If the doorbell is sleeping, because my modifier is while sleeping and the subject is doorbell, if the doorbell is sleeping, then what's ringing? We don't know. Yes, so we need to correct it. While sleeping, I heard that the doorbell rang, or she heard that the doorbell rang. Okay, or while she was sleeping, the doorbell rang. Multiple ways of correcting it. Next one. After thoroughly examining the entire set of evidence and the witnesses, the investigation was solved. After thoroughly examining the entire set. So who is examining? The moment you read this, a phrase which is not giving you a subject, ask yourself, where's the subject? Thoroughly examining the set of evidence, the investigation. Can the investigation investigate itself? Oh, like, can the investigation examine and do everything to itself? No, we need somebody to do it. So who's that somebody? The investigation was solved by the detective. So that detective is the somebody. So we need to put this detective over here. After thoroughly examining the entire set of evidence and witnesses, the detective from the Scotland Yard solved the investigation. Okay. So what did I do? The detective of the Scotland Yard, I kept it just after the comma to solve the investigation. All right. Next, a house was made for Jim. I have my subject Jim. Yeah, a house was made for Jim. Sentence over. Now comes the modifier. With the glass walls and interior decoration he always longed for. He goes back to Jim. So many students say that, yeah, this is correct because I have the reference to he. I know that the house was made for Jim. But you observe it carefully. I said that the third rule, place them next to each other. That means these two things next to each other. So Gym with glass walls and interior decoration. So gym has glass wall or the house has glass wall? The house. Yes. So this glass wall needs to go with house, not with gym. So the correct way of writing this would be, think yourself first and then hear me out. The correct way is the house with the glass walls and the interior decoration Jim always longed for was made for him. Okay, I'll repeat this. A house with the glass walls and the interior decoration Jim always longed for was made for him. Okay, now no modifier error. Next one. Featuring the latest application and games, my dad. How your dad features latest application and games? Can our dads do that? No, we cannot. So it needs to say that who featured the latest application, and it is the iPhone. It's not the dad featuring the late. Or so there are multiple ways again to correct it. Either you put this iPhone just after featuring, or you simply say my dad got me the new iPhone, comma, featuring the latest applications. Yes, so just change the way sentence is written. Just put the second part first, first part second. Yeah, and then it'll be corrected. Okay, so you see modifiers are so funny, and if you have a good hold on modifier, you will find a lot of places where people make lots of modifier errors, and then you'll read it and you'll be like, the meaning has totally changed here. A lot of time, magazines, boards here and there, hoardings everywhere, you will see this. Okay, let's look at our SAT type of question now. Here, although covered, so you can pause the video, solve it yourself, and then look at the explanation. Okay, it says, although covered in about 11 inches of snow, aviation officials said that condition on the runway at the time of emergency landing was acceptable. Compare the options. That's our first step. The runway condition, the aviation officer, and the runway condition. So who was covered in 11 inch of snow? The officials are covered or the runway is covered? Obviously the runway is covered, right? The officials cannot be covered. So we know that original answer and option C are definitely out. Between B and D, again very easy. B says the runway, but then it says the runway conditions. Can the conditions be covered? No. It is the runway that will be covered. So because of condition, this goes out, and because of the officials, these two goes out. So it looks a long sentence, but can be solved easily, very quickly. And hence, D is the correct answer. All right. So this was for modifiers. I'll see you in another video very soon. Thank you for watching.